The bigger the clinic becomes, the more responsibilities you've got. So one, there's got to be a level of responsibility and governance on your own behalf to make sure that the people that are, within your team are going to get paid and you're being responsible. But it's also, the bigger you get, the bigger the difference there is between, I think there's a time lag between profit and cash flow. So, if you're a practitioner, sole practitioner, and you know that December, January is quiet, then you generally notice that in your own bank account in that December, that New Year's period. If you're a bigger company, it's that quiet period over that time may hurt you at the back end of January because you've kept paying some bills, you've paid some rent, and there's bigger commitments, and because of the volume of cash flow, it takes a while to realize that your cash flow's been running out of it. So it's a problem, but it doesn't really, your bank account looks its worst at the end of January rather than January 1st when it's happening. Then throw in a whole heap of payroll, and you then get to, mid-Feb, and you've got your PAYG from the previous month, and that was at January, and it's big because people were still getting paid.
Yeah.
They were just on leave. And so you've still got your PAYG to do. You've probably got your super accruals if you're doing payroll tax every week. All of a sudden, you've got these big lumpy things happening in February, and you're like, here I was thinking we're now turning a profit and we're a busy clinic. We have a cash flow problem now. And it's because of what happened back in December, January. If you budgeted and you'd seen the reality of the impact of what December was going to have on your clinic and January, and you knew that back in August, then you kind of know what's going to happen, but ahead of time, and you can create a bit more of a war chest, or you can do something to help you. But the point that happens with the clinics that grow is that they have noticed that, they have experienced that firsthand, that they've realized that cash flow and profitability start to separate a bit further. And then what can happen, and this is more the fear and instilling a little bit of fear, whether that's on purpose or not, to help people do a budget, is to go, you hit a point where you can't dig yourself out of a hole because of how lumpy that expense is. If there is an 80 grand bill that you just hadn't quite planned for, that's like, you can't make that up. You can't go, I'll go and treat 20 more patients to get me on top of that. You just can't. So the bigger you get, the more of a pickle you end up in if you haven't been planning.
What other sort of key decisions do you use a budget for? What have you found in your own sort of business, but also coaching other clinics to see the relevance and importance of doing it?
There's a couple of things, but you touched on a really good point there around the triple pay cycle and budgeting for that. But it's also for your own state of mind, that we've had those months where you look at it and you think, oh, I've just had a $20,000 loss or $10,000 loss or whatever it is. And it's a triple pay cycle. And that hurts. Or it could even be, say it's a profitable month, but you were just like, gee, we were a lot more profitable last month than this month. And it feels like you've gone backwards, and you're like, I felt busier. When you've budgeted, and you've budgeted for an entire year, two things happen. One, if you've factored in a triple pay cycle, so if you've gone to kind of that level of detail, which I kind of think is the first layer beyond a very superficial budget. That first layer is having a monthly budget that factors in pay cycles. Then what might happen is you can see that in that month, let's say it's May, that when I look at my budget and what I've planned, we're going to have a $5,000 loss in that month. And you know that, and you can see that. And so when May eventually rolls around and you have a $2,000 loss in that month, that's a win. That's you ahead of budget. And that's a much nicer feeling than not having budgeted and just see a $2,000 loss sitting there and going, oh, that's not great. So it allows you to be that one step back, because if you've budgeted for 12 months and hopefully you've budgeted, you've seen what the whole year is going to be and it's spat out a figure, a profit figure, you get this moment 12 months in advance from that profit figure to go, do I like this number? Am I happy with this? Is this reflective of the time, the risk, everything I'm going to take over the next 12 months to get there? Is this stacking up? So you feel a bit more in control of the decision at that point in time, rather than getting to the end of the year and going, oh, that's just, why did I work this year?
It's so true, because you get to the accountant meeting at the end of the year and we hear so many times, like, you're waiting for the accountant to tell you how profitable you were or not. And you go, oh, and it's never good when they're like, this is where you ended up and it's not what you hoped for or expected.
Yeah, it's just nothing you can do about at that point. So it feels like you're in a bit more control at that 12 months out, because if it's not saying what you want it to say, you get this moment to go, well, what can I do about it? Or what do I need to do about it? Do I need to reconsider what I'm spending in whatever category? Or do I need to really double down and say, well, this particular service at the clinic is just not really at the level that it should be. And I can now clearly see that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to sit down and brainstorm what needs to be done. And it can help form a 12-month plan.